One of these players that we know needs and deserves a lot of attention is Kerby Joseph. And early on in the season, we teased this. Hey, is he one of the best safeties in the league? Is he the best safety in the league? Do the Lions have the best safety tandem in the league? And early on, people said, whoa, slow your roll. Hold on there, Rondell. But now people are saying... Shout out, Phil. Now people are saying, you know what? Kerby Joseph is that deal.
Yes.
He's that deal. He's one of the tops in interceptions, and I believe that he could actually be the top, if not for his own teammate that's also a ball hawk as well,
Yes.
and one Brian Branch, man. Talk to me about Kerby Joseph and where you believe he should be in this Defensive Player of the Year race.
Well, the fact that he's even in the running is a testament to how well that he's played. Last week, I made a case that Brian Branch, I put him at 4th in my Defensive Player of the Year rankings. However, this week, I'm swapping in Kerby Joseph and moving down Brian Branch just a bit because he did not play his best game against Tennessee. And when you talk about Defensive Player of the Year, you got to nitpick a little bit. But Kerby Joseph, right now, on my Defensive Player of the Year list, if Flannel Sam had a vote, he would be 4th. And the reason why that's so amazing and why you should not look at it as I'm hating because he's not higher. Did you know that only 4 safeties in the history of the NFL have won Defensive Player of the Year?
And I hope people aren't looking at it as hating.
Yes.
I'm happy with this ranking.
Only 4. It was Troy Polamalu, Ed Reed, Bob Sanders, and Dick Anderson.
And look who you named.
Hey, yes. And everybody remembers those Dick Anderson days. He was the man. He actually was the man for the 72 Dolphins. But the point is that usually lately it's gone to an edge rusher. It's gone to linebackers quite a few times too. It's even gone to corners a lot more often than safeties. But this season, Kerby Joseph he's taken that leap to me from being an excellent ball hawk to just an all-around excellent safety. Here's some numbers when it comes to Kerby Joseph. He's 2nd in the NFL in interceptions. He's the 2nd highest graded PFF safety in the NFL after his teammate Brian Branch, which they absolutely are the best safety tandem in the NFL, at least the way they're playing this year. Yeah. He's allowed a 41% completion percentage when targeted, a 23 passer rating allowed when targeted, which is absolutely absurd. You'd be better off throwing it into the ground every time if you're a quarterback than throwing it at Kerby Joseph. And 4 of his interceptions have occurred in the end zone, which means that quarterbacks are literally trying to give themselves 28 points, and Kerby Joseph was just like, no, we get the ball instead. It's not just that he's gotten the interceptions, he is flipping and changing games. He is taking the hearts out of opponents. They are in position to score, and he is just snuffing out all of their dreams. So yes, Kerby Joseph is right now playing like the first-team All-Pro safety, and to me, he is 4th in my Defensive Player of the Year rankings.
Yeah, and you know what, with Kerby Joseph, that was one of the players that, when we go back and rerun the tape, it was that opportunistic aspect where I know people were like, well, is Terrion Arnold and Ennis Rakestraw, are we really going to be able to depend on them? What's Carlton Davis going to do? Is he still going to be that guy? Is Amik Robertson, is he going to be that dog? And you know what? I love the tandem of Brian Branch and Kerby Joseph. And obviously we wish if he was able to kind of throw his name in the hat as well. But I always believed that Kerby was going to take that next step towards elite because of his ability to take the ball away. Based on the way that AG schemes up this defense, it gives a lot of opportunity to those safeties, especially when you're in the red zone. And Kerby and Brian Branch, what they do well is they use their speed to set up and to manipulate the quarterbacks. Like to hear them somebody from within NFL media state that they heard from an actual pro team say that it's because of the blue color of the wall. Now, you look around the NFL, I was just like, let me just start looking at highlights. This is a theme. All the teams have this type of stuff where they have a matching jersey that matches the back wall. But instead of wanting to give the credit to Kerby Joseph, who's more than lucky, because everybody gets lucky every now and then. But this is a guy this is his craft, man, and he's showing and proving that you want to throw the ball and test him, you better make sure that it is on target, because I've even seen him take those away.
Yes.
So it's like Kerby Joseph, I'm happy to hear where your ranking is with them. And the other cool thing is this. Who knew that the Detroit Lions were going to have multiple players worthy to be within the top 5, maybe even top 10 of the Defensive Player of the Year conversation? Brian Branch has heard his name floated around. Kerby Joseph deserves to have his name there. Obviously, we know how Aiden Hutchinson started the season, and when he went down, who knew that we were going to have multiple players that not only would step up, but would step up to the tune of, like you said, changing the whole complexity of games.
Well, that's the thing. Aiden Hutchinson, if he didn't go down, he was the front runner. He was the absolute front runner. And I've got Kerby at 4, and I don't know exactly where I'd put Brian Branch in my rankings. I'd probably put him at like 6 or 7 at this point. But if you want something even to further what I'm saying that I think will make a lot of you happy, I actually have Kerby Joseph ahead of Xavier McKinney on my list. I've had Xavier McKinney consistently about 2 or 3 when I'm doing just my personal Defensive Player of the Year rankings, but Xavier McKinney, he did have a pick against Jacksonville, but he allowed a couple of big plays, and now his passer rating allowed when targeted is worse than Kerby Joseph. So I got Xavier McKinney at like 5, 6, 7, wherever you want to just rank him. And if you just want to hear my top 3 really quick, at number 1, I've got Dexter Lawrence. What a season he's having. Leading the NFL in sacks from the defensive tackle position. Finally getting the counting stats to go along with his overall just dominance of the defensive tackle position. And the Giants quite as kept. They got Kayvon, they've got Brian Burns, they've got Dexter Lawrence, they've got Azeez Ojulari, and it means absolutely nothing because the rest of their team is trash. They're wasting what could be a historic defensive line. At number 2, I have TJ Watt. 6.5 sacks, one of 5 players in the NFL with 10 tackles for loss, and leads the NFL in forced fumbles with 4, which is insane. And at number 3, my guy, Will Anderson, somebody who the paralysis of analysis of this guy when he was coming out was really, really strong. I knew Will Anderson was going to be a future Defensive Player of the Year candidate because that one season he had at Alabama was maybe the most dominant season an edge rusher has ever had in college. You can argue it, and this year, 7.5 sacks and leads the NFL in tackles for loss with 11. But Kerby Joseph, he is right behind those guys, and those guys are all having excellent, excellent seasons. Any of them could potentially win it in any given year, and Kerby Joseph is right there. He's right there in terms of a valuability to his team and just excellent defensive play with all of those guys.
Yeah, and you know what's cool is that the Detroit Lions have identified players who we can say, you know what, this is their skill set. Like Amik Robertson, he said, look, man, this is what I do. And he punched out a couple fumbles, man. Kerby Joseph, and we see how he's now made it a trend. You want to test me in the end zone, do so at your own risk. We see what Brian Branch is doing. You want to test this guy on any level of the field. And it's cool to, and Aiden Hutchinson on that defensive line, that they identified players on every single layer of that defense that are specialists at things that for a long time I was wondering, when are the Lions going to have their ball hawk? When are the Lions going to have that guy that consistently is ranking in the top this or top that of the interceptions? The way that these guys, just from a physicality standpoint, can go out there and bully another team. Like this squad, man, goodness gracious, when I hear people from Terry Foster talk about they go out there and their pregame isn't going through the normal BS that the other teams do. No, you'll see Amik Robertson out there punching the ball out, punching the ball out, punching the ball out. Like they're practicing this. You see the cornerbacks out there and the DBs out there saying, no, let's go through real drills. Like I'm really trying to lock you up and get ready for this game. Like their whole mentality and mindset is dominance, and they're practicing it. They're preaching it. They're listening to it, and we're seeing it come through. And now players, talk about a coach who's coaching up his players, bro, to excellence.
Yes.
That's an amazing thing, man, especially when we're sitting here hoping that on the college level, some of our programs can get this out of theirs. But the Lions are doing this now with multiple players that nobody called from the beginning. Like, yeah, these guys are going to be in Defensive Player of the Year races in the beginning when these guys were first drafted. Like, shout out to them, man. They know what they're doing.
I will say this, though. Spenny did call for Kerby Joseph to lead the NFL in interceptions. So if anybody called this, I would say that he did. He's not quite there yet, but Xavier McKinney's a pretty damn good football player himself. And I'm glad you mentioned, before we go to break and talk about some trades, trade possibilities. I'm glad that you mentioned Terry Foster in all of this, because he has turned into, in front of our own eyes, a
Talk
fan.
about it.
Because nobody is more...
It's beautiful to see.
Objective than Terry Foster. He has no ounce of fanboy in him when it comes to his analysis of the Lions. And when I see him on Woodward in Maine, when I just talk to him personally, I have never seen him this giddy about really any Detroit sports team, at least since I've known him. And it's so funny to see on that show, because you've even won over Terry Foster, because Matt Broder, with all due respect, he's more like us. He's great at what he does, but he's clearly a fan, as am I, as are you, Koolaid, KG, Chase, JB, all of us. But to win over Terry Foster, you know you've done something right.
You done something.
Yes.
And the Lions, man, I hope they keep doing it with the Packers on the horizon. But everybody from Dan Miller to the Us's of the world to the U's chat family of the world, we all believe something needs to be added. And now I'm hearing, before it was just an edge, now I'm starting to hear more and more people say what we were saying. They need to add a couple people.